So welcome to the Museum Wines and Blind Faith online tasting in support of Isabelo. So just so you know, you could see me, I can see you. Unknown host entered the waiting room. That's a bit weird. But you're all muted just because we're going to have up to 60 people on the call. So just to keep it simple, we don't want the camera jumping around if someone's cat stands on a cactus or something like that, making strange sounds. Robbie's here as well. So Robbie's from Blind Faith. He's founded Blind Faith at the end of last year. So he's co-hosting. So he will be helping me out. Robbie, do you know what that unknown host entered the waiting room is? That's a bit weird. I don't like that.
I did see it pop up. Unless someone's candidly put their name as unknown host to fox you.
Maybe should we let them in, see what happens? So feel free to, we've got the chat box going. This is all being recorded as well. So we'll share the recording tomorrow. I know there are some people that haven't done the tasting yet. So anyone that's going to do it later in the day or over the weekend, they'll get a link so they can watch this. But we've got the chat box going as well. So any questions, feel free to throw those into the chat box. Robbie will deal with anything that he can deal with immediately. And anything else that he can't, then I'll look over those towards the end of the chat. So we've got 40 minutes on Zoom, so we'll get cracking. I'll hand over to Robbie, who's going to tell you a bit more about Blind Faith and the way it works for those of you that haven't used it before, and then we'll get stuck into the wines.
Sounds good. Thanks, Daniel. Good evening, everyone. My name is Robbie. Great to be here. Big thanks to everyone for supporting this tasting, supporting the charity that Daniel's going to speak a little bit more about. But it's great to have such strong sales of the tasting packs and then such strong submissions of our votes. I think we've had 40 people submit their votes for what they thought the wines were, and then we've obviously got quite strong attendance on this call as well, which is great. So thanks everyone for joining. To speak a little bit on Blind Faith. So this was an idea I had in December to bring some people together and taste some wine. So once every 2 weeks, we run through a format like this, where we send out some wines totally blind. This week, we're obviously tasting South African wines from Daniel's range, from the Museum Wines range. The wines we send out are totally blind, so it gives people a chance to really test their palate. It's a very, very difficult skill, as I'm sure you guys will all attest, having tasted these wines blind and try and submit what they were. But we've had some really good responses in. Daniel's going to give us a rundown of each wine. He's going to talk about how you guys called these wines, how you guessed them, well, which region you thought they were from, which varietal you thought they were produced from, which vintage, and then some people have taken a shot at producer as well. And very, very excited to say, of the 4 wines which we showed, 3 of the wines have been called with the producer, the vintage, the variety, right down to the wine. So maximum scores on 3 of the 4 wines, which is super impressive and really good to see. And after the tasting, we're going to share a link to a leaderboard. So what we try and do is combine the blind tasting element with some analysis on how you all called these wines. So if a lot of you have called wine number 2 Chardonnay, as in fact the case, you get to see kind of, I was in a group of people who all called that Chardonnay, and you can see what everyone else called it as well, and share that analysis and see where you stacked up versus other people as well. So we're going to share a link to that leaderboard, and that will reveal the wines, and that will give you the analysis and the leaderboard. So we'll share that after the call. But I'll be here. I'll hand back over to Daniel. I'll be active in the chat. So if you've got any questions as we go through, feel free to jump in, and I'll pick up any questions that I can. We might have to save some questions till the end. But I'll hand back over to Daniel, and we'll start stepping through these wines 1 through 4. But really great to be here, and thank you all for the support.
Perfect. Thanks, Robbie. So as some of you will have seen on the email sent out at the beginning of the week, 78 packs sold. So that's £780 being donated to Isabelo. So that's a huge amount of money in pounds, but translating it into rand, it's about 15,000 rand. Is going to go a huge distance in feeding the hungry school children who have just gone back to school, because the schools are back open in South Africa now. So thank you all for the support. But let's get cracking. Wine 1. So I think this was probably the most difficult. I felt slightly mean putting it in. So the biggest suggestion was Chenin Blanc. I've actually got some in my glass now. I've just poured my pouch. I can totally see why people are saying Chenin Blanc. It's got that sort of waxy lanolin character to it, bit of soft stone fruits, but it's not Chenin Blanc. It's also not Sauvignon Blanc, which is the second favorite suggestion, alongside Chardonnay. They're about neck and neck. Chenin was by far the favorite, and then Sav and Chardonnay neck and neck. It is, in fact, Videlio from the Swartland, of course. So Orgderac, who are a Swartland producer, they joined our portfolio in December. We had our first shipment from them land just before Christmas. They've been in the UK for a while, but fancied a change, so they've severed the agreement with the previous importer, and we're now bringing their wines into the UK. So Videlio, not the most common grape grown in South Africa. Videlio is the same grape as Verdejo, so you'll commonly find it in its indigenous homeland of northern Spain in the Rueda, Galicia region. So that is what wine number 1 was, and no one got it. I don't think anyone got the region. So Swartland is very dry, very arid, over towards the sort of the west of Cape Town. Towards the coast, there's Darling, which is probably the almost coastal part of Swartland. So we get some Chenin Blancs from there. So Chenin Blanc, obviously, in Swartland is very popular. But today it's Videlio is the win. So moving on to wine number 2. So as Robbie said, someone did get wine number 2, and as we said before, when we were selling the packs, 2 of the wines were £59.99. The others were between £10 and £20. So the Videlio is £12.99. So I think for the money, I think it's a great value bottle of wine, which now reveals that the second white wine must be the £59.99, just under £60 bottle of wine. Sorry, well, I'm having an entry inquiry. Someone trying to get into the chat. Bear with me. So the most popular suggestions was Chardonnay, overwhelmingly Chardonnay. I think about 25% of people who made submissions thought that wine number 2 was Chardonnay, which was probably what I was expecting people to think it was, because this wine's its very nature and style can mimic an unoaked, a slightly oaked Chardonnay. There was some comments about this having new oak. It has no new oak. Again, the grape can mimic oaky characteristics. It does have some second fill oak, so old 500-litre barrels, I believe. Jacques told me on WhatsApp the other day. Yeah, 5 to 8 year old 500-litre French oak barrels. So a 5 to 8 year old barrel is going to give almost no influence into the flavour of the wine whatsoever. It is you're going to get texture, mouthfeel, things like that, but you're not going to get any flavour like you would from new oak, because a new oak barrel will give flavour to the wine for probably the first time it's used, and then after that, it gives very little influence to the flavor whatsoever. So to put you out of your misery, it was not Chardonnay, and it's not Chenin Blanc, which is the second most popular call. There were some people very confident in the fact that it was Chenin Blanc in the notes, but it is Semillon, Dark Side of the Vine, from Black Elephant Vintners in Franschhoek, who are also doing a project supporting Isabelo at the moment. So they're in Franschhoek. Not all of their wines are wine of origin Franschhoek. They do buy fruit from around the Cape. A bit of a garagiste winemaker is Jacques. So they make 3 white sparkling wines, all from different vineyards. So one is Franschhoek. They've got another, Zero Dosage, which is from Elgin, which is amazing. 8 years on its lease. So similar to something like Bollinger RD, but it's 20% of the price of Bollinger RD. It's $24.99, not 150 quid a bottle. So they also do a Blanc de Blanc from Simmonsburg Pile. So they utilize all the amazing vineyards around them. We've been working with them for just over a year now. It is 2017 vintage, so the new vintage just been released, just arrived with us just before Christmas on our most recent container shipment. 2,200 bottles produced only, so that's a tiny production in wine scales. 108-year-old vineyard, so it's a particular vineyard in Franschhoek, which is 108 years old. Winemakers have to go on a waiting list to get an allocation of fruit from there, so that's why there's so little produced. The vines are of such an age now, they produce an amazing quality of fruit, but actually very little of it. So there we go. Wine number 2, 2017 vintage Semillon from Black Elephant in Franschhoek. Someone's saying second wine is amazing. Yes, you're correct. 10 points. So there was, I believe it was Malcolm Venter got that spot on. Cultivar, region, producer, and vintage. A few people got the grape, but not the vintage. But Malcolm got everything about it correct. So well done, Malcolm. Moving on. Just also the Videlio was 2018. I didn't mention that when I introduced it. So we're going to go onto the first red wine, which was wine number 3. I'm going to see off my wine number 1 so that I can enjoy wine number 3 with you. So wine number 3, I thought was going to be difficult because I think it is a somewhat unusual expression of the grape, and we got a real range of different assessments of it. So there was Syrah and Shiraz, which are counted separately, so they're not obviously different stylistic differences in Syrah and in Shiraz, but it's neither of those. It's also not a GSM blend, which was another popular suggestion. It is actually what people thought it was. So the most suggestions were correct, and that is for Pinotage, Morisson, the Widowmaker Pinotage, 2018 vintage. They do another, which is a Pinotage Cinsault blend, and we got a few calls for that. So people obviously quite confident that it was that Pinotage Cinsault blend, which has a very similar label. 2015 vintage, the Pinotage Cinsault, which was the last vintage they made of it. So a lot of people were guessing that it was a 2020 or 2019 of the Pinotage Cinsault, but they never made those vintages. The last time it was made was 2015. So this is the 2018, which is a new release from Morrison. So Morrison are also in Franschhoek. They're on the R45. If anyone knows South Africa, on the R45 as you're driving towards Franschhoek High Street, opposite La Motte, next to a restaurant called Maison, which is amazing. I remember my first trip to South Africa, and probably our best lunch there was at Maison, and we got the bill, and we were there. No, they must have only charged us for one person, or the bill came to, it was the equivalent of £40 for two people to have a 3-course lunch and a mid-range bottle of wine. They did the Maison Chardonnay, which I think works out at £8 a bottle on the wine list. So you could see with the amount of money we raised, I mean, that's how far £40 goes at a very high-end restaurant. So 780 to feeding children is going to go a very, very long way indeed. So this, whilst Morrison are in Franschhoek, the vines that the fruit comes from are not. They're actually in Stellenbosch. They're at the University of Stellenbosch, and they are the oldest. They're the original Pinotage vines planted back, I think it was early 50s when Pinotage was first planted. So the vines are, unfortunately, the vineyard's now been grubbed up because it was virused. So that vineyard is no longer there. So this is probably one of the last wines you'll get from that vineyard. They've taken cuttings from the vineyard and they're going to replant in Franschhoek. So Morrison actually had exclusive rights to the fruit for this wine. They used to share it with Kanonkop, who probably make the most famous Pinotage in South Africa and the most expensive. Black Label is their Kanonkop Pinotage. If you want to spend £150 on a bottle of Pinotage, then Kanonkop can help you out with that. But this isn't £150. It's £19.99 if you buy 6 bottles. And if you don't, I think it's £22.99. So either way, I think it's delicious. It's one of my go-to sort of house reds. And I think that this new vintage, I just think is exceptional. I'm not the biggest lover of Pinotage. There are some that I cannot drink. But this one I think is exceptional. Someone actually called it Ashbourne Pinotage, which is the Pinotage made by Hamilton Russell in Hemel and Ard, which is 45 quid a bottle. And that person works in the industry at a Michelin star restaurant, and they're South African. So they know what they're talking about, and they thought that this was a wine 2.5 times the price, but it's not. So I've seen lots of comments. Lots of people enjoyed the Pinotage, which is good. I think this is probably the Pinotage that will convert anyone who doesn't like Pinotage. It's certainly been converting me. It's converted a lot of other people I know who sort of turn their nose up at it.
Daniel, do we have any idea what kind of treatment it's had in the winery? Because it certainly feels quite polished, quite big, quite tannins. I'm guessing quite a lot of quite long maceration time, maybe quite a lot of pump over, because it definitely feels like it's got that polish that's been brought out of it almost. Do we know what it goes through in the winery?
To be honest, I don't.
Okay.
They do a flash. Linda Miller is on here somewhere. So Linda is the brand ambassador for Holden Mans in the UK, and she did a wine tasting with Oriel Wines, who are a customer of ours in Hartley Whitney in Hampshire, with this wine being shown. It was one of the most popular wines on the evening. So Linda, if Clayton shared any pearls of wisdom as to how this wine was made, feel free to let us know in the chat box. There you are, Linda. Are you off mute? Do you want to join in?
Yeah, I'm sorry. He was very cagey, and he didn't tell us any more than that's on the website.
You're representing Holden Mans in the background, I can see.
That was from last night. Yeah.
Well, all of them. Wow.
Yeah, it's my
It's always
bedside
a good
table.
night at the Mellor household, especially on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yes, Dom, you did call the 17, which we don't have any more of, so couldn't be that. It has to be the 18 because that's all we've got. check the current vintage on the website next time. It's a bit of a giveaway. So we'll move on to the fourth wine. But one thing I do know, they do MKM, which is their flagship pinotage, which they make less than 1,000 bottles a year of. We've got the last 210 bottles of the 2016 on the way from South Africa now. And they only made 1,000 bottles of that vintage, and I think we've had about 600 of them, which is pretty impressive considering it's a £40 pinotage. It's incredibly in demand, but that is a very elegant style of pinotage. They use amphora aging rather than oak, so putting it in amphora clay pots, which gives the wine a lot more elegance, and also 13.5% alcohol, that the MKM, which is low for pinotage. But this is 15, so this is quite punchy, the MKM. Sorry, the Widowmaker. So wine number 4. What do people think wine number 4 was? Again, I think it was quite a broad spectrum of estimations. Bordeaux blend. Sorry, Zoom sending me messages. Bordeaux blend was the most popular. I thought this was probably going to be the easiest, but we got a really broad set of calls. So Bordeaux blend, Cab Merlot, Cab Franc, maybe Petit Verdot in there. No, none of those. Not pinotage either. That was probably the most surprising. So again, because we've revealed that the Widowmaker is £20 a bottle, that must mean that wine number 4 is 60. So no, it's not a £60 pinotage. It's not Pinot Noir. That was probably what I thought most people would, if they didn't get it right. I thought that might be where they would go. Not Cabernet. I think if you've called Cab or Bordeaux blend or pinotage, I think you'll be slightly surprised as to what it actually is. So this, I mentioned that this is the Semillon was 2,200 bottle production, which is very small. This is even smaller. This is just about a quarter of that, 600 bottles a year made of this wine. Putting that into context, Dom Perignon, you might see over my left shoulder on the wall, nice bit of artwork, nice champagne, believed to be quite rare and elusive, but they make 9 million bottles a year. So it's not really that rare or exclusive or elusive, definitely not elusive. The only people that get into a bidding war on Dom Perignon is people who were trying to invest in it and then end up in a race to the battle as who could sell it for the least, because it doesn't, you'll never struggle to find a bottle of Dom Perignon. There are enough made each year for every man, woman and child in the UK to have a glass once a year. Whereas this, so for every 15,000 bottles of Dom Perignon produced every year, there is only one solitary bottle of Uva Mira DW Syrah, 2017. Shout out to John Dimbleby. No, John Dimbleby did get the pinotage spot on with vintage, producer, region, everything, and he's actually at the top of the leaderboard. Who was it, Robbie? Can you remember who got the DW Syrah spot on?
Yeah, it was leaderboard named Knickers.
Knickers, there we go. So well done to Knickers for getting the DW Syrah, every single element of it correct. You nailed it.
Rowan just popped up in the comments. Nick Rowan got it. Yeah, got it bang on. Vintage producer and called the Syrah as well.
Yeah, that was one of the late entries, wasn't it?
Yeah. It had a meatiness to it that comes from Saint Joseph. You know, when I don't eat meat, but when I get like a burnt bacon or burnt, and it's not stuck to me, just says Syrah.
Yeah, and it is very Northern Rhone. And what you said just now reminds me of the Rudy Kuniawan film, which I think was Sour Grapes. So for anyone that doesn't know the story, Rudy was a famous wine fraudster, blending wines in his kitchen and bottling them and labeling them himself and selling them off as very, very expensive Bordeaux and Burgundies and Rhones, often catching himself out by making wines that never existed. So magnums of Latour from the 20s, when they didn't actually make magnums in that vintage, or wines from Burgundy that never existed in the vintage they were made, apparently. So there was a famous story. It was what was the producer's name? He stopped an auction part way. It said, "Take my wines out of this auction." And they said, "Well, why?" "Because they're not ours. We didn't make them. He made them in his bathroom." But what Nick said just now about how the bacon fat reminded me of that film, because they try one of Rudy's wines that someone's convinced is genuine. They take it to a wine merchant in New York. They're all remonstrating about how wonderful it is. And the wine merchant tries it and goes, "No, this is skunk juice. That wine should taste like a BLT with an egg on top." Which reminded me very much of, and it was a Northern Rhone Syrah they were trying. So what Nick said just now about the burnt bacon character in the wine, gave it away for him as Syrah. I think now that you know it's Syrah, you probably know it's Syrah. It has got that sort of new leather, bit of purple flowers, violet, slight bit of white pepper, all the sort of the telltale giveaways that it is Syrah, and it is exceptional. I think it is definitely worth £60 a bottle. I think it's better than a lot of South African Syrahs, which command £100 a bottle. But I mean, if this was said sine qua non on the label and was from California or Orange Swift, it would be triple digits, easy, 150, 200 plus. Especially made in those quantities, 600 bottles a year. So we've got 60 people, 39 of who are on the call, who've tried this wine in the last week, and you're one of a small select group that will ever get the chance to try this wine, because we get 90 bottles a year. That's our allowance, that's our allocation. So typically 90 bottles won't be tasted by 60 people. But they have been on this occasion, because of the way we're able to structure these tastings, where we can split 8 bottles between 60 people, which is not normal. But there we go. D. Ludlow, not much white pepper. There's not a huge amount. No, it's not like having a handful of ground white pepper thrown in your face, certainly, but it is there. I'm certain of it. I could be wrong. I was once before.
I got a lot of black olive on it. That's usually my Syrah marker. And when I get black olive, it's a Rhone kind of Syrah as well. Definitely not a Shiraz kind of style. So yeah, I got a lot of black olive. That's what took me there. But I knew what it was when I was tasting it. So it was very easy for me to go there.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, Robbie and I I was having great difficulty with the blind faith. I do the compete tier. I was having great difficulty with a red recently. And Robbie said, "Well, I thought it was very typical of what it is." And I said, "Yes, but you know what it is. So it makes it a lot easier when you can see the label." But that's what's great fun about blind tasting. And for anyone who hasn't done particularly well, don't be hard on yourselves, because I have given winemakers their own wines blind before, and they've not known what it is. And so they made it. They should have an idea. Or even worse, when you give someone something blind, they say it's rubbish and they made it. Some of my blind faith, I've only done 2 rounds and I've already embarrassed myself. I thought of Australian Shiraz. I was convinced it was Super Tuscan, or at least a Saint Julien Bordeaux. Shameful. Yes, John, you did call the wrong vineyard. You called Start Condé Syrah. Still Stellenbosch, but just the wrong bit higher up Uvamira. And you've had the DW plenty of times. You should know better. What else did I call recently, which was completely wrong? Lismore, this South African wine expert. that I am Lismore Reserve Viognier, I thought was Bordeaux Blanc. So there we go. Trade professionals can't do it. Winemakers can't do it. But John Dimbleby, Chartered Surveyor, is very good at it. So that's all the wines. We've tasted all the wines. I think we've got about 8 minutes left on the call. So I'll scroll through. Was there anything, Robbie, that you thought I needed to any questions that you skipped?
No, I think we had a few questions which you picked up on, and a handful of comments throughout. But it seems basically based on the anecdotal comments, it certainly seems like the Pinotage was the big surprise in terms of the quality and the and the value of that wine. And it seems everyone really enjoyed the Syrah as well.
There's a comment from Nick, 6:10. Bit intense on the flavors. Price, it's not bad. If at 20, I'd have been disappointed. What was that? Was that the Videlio? I think that was the Videlio, yeah.
Yeah, that was the Verdelho. Yeah, I thought it was a bit too intense to be elegant, and I don't know if I could have finished a whole glass.
Sure.
120 ml glass. Yeah.
Sure, got it. Yeah, it's.
I was surprised that the Videlio, Daniel, was in a warm climate like South Africa, incredible, vibrant. I mean, it was just an awesome wine, and I was just taken aback with. That's a wine that's from South Africa. Never ever have thought of that.
No, and I think they're a bit of a Videlio specialist, Org d'Urac. And it is hot and arid there. But Videlio is often grown in Portugal also, where it's more commonly known as Videlio rather than in Spain, it's Verdejo. Obviously Portugal, very, very hot. And there's a big Portuguese influence in South Africa. A lot of people are Portuguese descendants. So why shouldn't it be there? Why shouldn't it be in the Swartland? They do another one called, I'm not going to try and pronounce it in Afrikaans because I'll embarrass myself, but it's the Guardhouse in Afrikaans, and it's a white blend, mostly Videlio with Chenin and Roussanne, £19.99, 2017 vintage. But it's cracking for under a field blend under 20 quid a bottle. It's very, very good indeed. Feel free if anyone wants to. I think you can unmute yourself. So if anyone wants to ask anything or keep tapping into the chat box for the last 6 minutes, feel free. Or stay silent.
Dan, it's Dom. I think great effort. Some wonderful wines, some new ones for me to try in the full bottle. I mean, it threw me. It was a bit of a rush, last minute effort in between work calls this afternoon. But no, it's super good fun, and yeah, some new ones for me to try properly.
Absolutely, jolly good. There we go. I've just seen a note from Katrina. What vintage is number 2? I might have covered it after you wrote that, but just in case, it's 2017, the Dark Side Semillon. So we had to hurry them up a bit because I said I wanted it for Christmas, and he said it's not got a label on it, and I said, well, put a label on it then, come on. So they wanted to leave it a bit longer, but we managed to get it over for Christmas. So it's been in the UK for a couple of months now. And yes, you're right, it could easily be confused for New Oak. Even Robbie thought there was New Oak on it, and I had to I was convinced there wasn't, but I had to double check with Jacques, and he confirmed no New Oak on the Black Elephant Semillon. Second one is amazing, absolutely. So we are running. I think we've got about 5 minutes left still. So the DW Syrah. Again, so this we've had this in stock for a little longer. I last tried it in September last year, which I think was when it first arrived, and it wasn't as good as this. That was when it had first been released to the market. The winery sell it out very quickly. Everyone gets an allocation. We actually get the largest global allocation of anyone because I was so impressed by it the first time I tried it. And the first time we imported it, which I think was 2018, that I went quite big on my order. I think we took 96 bottles. So we now get that every year for our early commitment to it. We're now rewarded, whereas some people only get 24, 36 bottles as to share between their nation of wherever they're importing it to. And it definitely wasn't as good as this in September when I last tried it. It's really blossomed and become a lot softer and a lot more approachable than it was. It was a little bit tight and angry, sort of hissed at you as you tried to put your nose in the glass.
Daniel, can we just get a quick summary of the 4 then, maybe just before we wrap up, just in case
sure.
maybe anyone joined or anyone was away from their computer for 5 or 10. Can we get a quick run through of 1 through 4?
Sure. Do you want to do that, or shall I?
Oh, you've got the bottles there, sir. So you go ahead.
I thought you were talking about the leaderboard. Sorry.
No.
So wine number 1, in case you missed it, Org Durak Videlio, 2018 from the Swartland. You do have to say the Swartland. It doesn't work if you miss out the. I've been assured. 13.5% alcohol, £12.99. There you go. Number 2, the Dark Side, the Dark Side Semillon from Black Elephant in Franschhoek from a 108-year-old vineyard. Only 2,200 bottles made, £59.99. 12% alcohol on the Semillon as well, which I quite like. I think that's very good. You can drink plenty of it and not fall over, which is quite important. Widowmaker was wine number 3, Pinotage. So the fruit is from Stellenbosch, the oldest Pinotage vineyards in Stellenbosch. 15% alcohol, 23 quid if you buy a bottle to test drive, but you've test driven it already. So if you liked it, buy 6, £19.99. And last but not least, the Uvamira DW Syrah. 13.5% alcohol, 2017 vintage. Only 600 bottles made. Lots of awards for Uvamira in general. This was actually the one that sort of caught my eye, why we started working with them in the first place. I was looking through the Decanter World Wine Awards in 2018, summer of, and kept seeing Uvamira, with not available UK. So I gave them a call and said, would you like to be? But as that wine got 97 points, that was for the 2016 vintage. And the Chardonnays invariably all get 96 or 95. They do 3 Chardonnays ranging from £29.99 up to £79.99, which all got the entry level and the middle one got 95 points recently from Decanter, and the top wine got 96. So consistent, if nothing else. But then you've got one at 30 quid and one at 60, both got 95, which I think, to explain why there's a difference in price, whereas a professional critic has said they're basically as good as one another, is they make a lot more of the £30 one. They make about 20,000 bottles a year, so still not a huge amount, but the other one, they make 1,200 from a single vineyard. So you can say it's come from precisely that vineyard on the estate, whereas the other ones come from anywhere on the estate. We can't specify the particular part of land that it was grown on, and we can't make much of it. So that inherently has a price attached to it, and also those wines will last a lot longer. I tried the £80 one recently, which I think they make 800 bottles of, and it's 2017 vintage, so it's not young. I mean, you get 2018, 2019, some 2020 Chardonnays already on the market. So 17 for the current release is not a young wine, but it is young. It's incredibly tight, incredibly lean. It's like trying to drink Chevalier Montrachet or something like that, which is phone number prices, if you can get it. And I tasted it with a Frenchman who was very impressed, who has a restaurant close to us. And he said, it's exceptional. For £80, it's better than any £80 Burgundy, but I wouldn't drink it now. I'd buy 12 bottles and we'll keep it for 5 years and we'll put it on the wine list in 5 years' time. And it'll be even better than it is now. So there are these South African wines, which I think a lot of them are drunk too soon. And there are a lot which can age and should be allowed to age. So there's food for thought. I think we need to wrap up. I think we're about to get kicked off. Is there anything else we need to address before we go, Robbie?
No, I don't think so. Just a big thanks to all. Yeah, really enjoyed the night. Thanks, Daniel, for hosting, and thanks everyone for being a part of it.
Well, thank you, Robbie, for your assistance. Thank you for everyone for joining. Thank you for your support of Isabelo. And so we'll send an email out tomorrow, which will have a link to the recording if anyone missed it or anyone wants to watch it again or share it with others. If you did enjoy this evening's Zoom, you can review it on our website, and then other people might do one when we do one again. If you didn't enjoy it, keep that to yourself. No one needs to know. And then there we have it. Good night and good luck.
And Robbie, thank you.
Thanks,
Right.
Don. Take care.
Great work. Cheers, everybody.
Cousin DWC
Thank you.
away.
I'm on it.